Hi everybody, thank you for joining us and welcome to this webinar to hear all about World Childless Week, which is becoming a staple topic in August for our MTL webinar series. We're delighted to be joined by Stephanie Phillips, the founder of this fantastic event that happens every September, who will tell us how we can get involved. Welcome Stephanie, it's our absolute pleasure to have you here again.
Hi Heather, I can't believe a year's gone by already since we first spoke. Crazy.
It is crazy, isn't it? We're two very busy people, aren't we? So the year has just flown past. It's incredible. Now, tonight we will begin this webinar with Stephanie's presentation, and then what we'll do is we'll move on to a very short Q&A session. Now, any questions that you have can be typed in as you listen to what Stephanie's saying. We will come back to them after her presentation is finished. Now, if you want to ask any questions, all you have to do is take your cursor down to the bottom of the screen and you'll see a toolbar there. Click on Q&A and type away. Now, please select the anonymous function. This just prevents any personal data being disclosed, as this session will be recorded and it will be watched by others later. Okay, I think it is finally time to hear about the absolutely amazing activities that are lined up for us this year with World Childless Week 2019. Have fun, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you again, Heather. I can't believe it's been a year, as I said, and I'm back again to talk about, hopefully, all things World Childless Week. I'm going to start a little bit with of my story, because I shared my story last year, and I thought, what can I actually say in this webinar that's going to make a difference? But then it suddenly came to me that my story hasn't ended. My story is still going on. It's still present. It's still got a future. So my story has changed. And when I was thinking about that, I suddenly realised that I'm learning new aspects of my life. And I'm still delving into thoughts that are new or I've not investigated thoroughly. I still don't understand everything there is to do with my personal journey of being childless. And, you know, I'm not a detective, although some people say I am, but I do a lot of thinking. And I'm sure that's something that many of us do as we reflect on the past and when we question the future. So I don't think that's a negative. I see that as something that we all have to go through as part of the grieving or healing process. So until a few months ago, as I said, I thought my story had come to an end, but it hasn't. And I suddenly had this inspiration, you could say, a revelation, whatever you want to say, that I've always said I was childless due to fertility issues. But I suddenly had a thought and thought, well, actually, is that true? Because when I spoke to the doctor all those years ago, when I was 39, and he or she rather gave us the final analysis when we were sitting in a consulting room, she came out with, if he manages to get you pregnant, it's highly unlikely you'll carry full term. So, and left the sentence just drifting in there for us. And my husband's results were written down in black and white. He knew where his problems lay, where things were not 100%. But mine weren't explained that thoroughly. There was nothing I could put a finger on and say, that's why I'm childless. You know, they hadn't given me any specific reasons. They didn't tell me why my body wouldn't hold a pregnancy. So I took it for granted. It was unexplained infertility. But I think all they did really was look at my age, look at my size, and just came up with that conclusion. It's, you're not going to carry a pregnancy full term. It's unexplained infertility, which is an enigma, because if I've never been pregnant, how do they know I can't carry a child full term? It's purely guesswork that doesn't help me heal or move forward with a diagnosis and some understanding of where I am at that time, or where I was at that time, and where I am now and where I'm going forward. And because of that thought, it played on my mind now and again, and it came up to the surface about 2 or 3 years ago, and I thought, perhaps I need to get my present doctor to read through the notes that were taken at that time to see if he can explain something to me, see if he can give me a clear diagnosis to help me through that misunderstanding. So I phoned the doctors and I asked them to look for my notes. And the receptionist came back to me and she went, I can't find them because all of the records are over 10 years old. So they're not updated to the computer, but they're on paperwork, and the paperwork is all up in the attic. And she'd gone through boxes trying to find them, and she couldn't find my paperwork, so I still didn't have an answer. And it was at that moment in time I thought, do I actually need her to go back and keep looking? Do I need to have an answer? If my doctor years ago, when we saw our personal GP, couldn't explain those notes because he didn't have the training in that side, who's to say the doctor I see now would be able to explain anything else about those notes? So I had to think about it, and I actually realised it didn't matter anymore. I was childless. I am childless. I will always be childless. And the reason doesn't matter anymore. It's not going to change who I am or what I am. It's not going to give me anything concrete that I can change. I can't change the past. I have to accept the future. So it really helped like that. Yeah, it was just another step towards acceptance for me. I'll never know the reason. I'm truly childless, but it doesn't matter. And then along with that thinking, I thought, am I truly childless just because of infertility? And in a way, I'm not, because we didn't meet, me and my husband, until my early 30s. We didn't try for a child till my late 30s. So most people would assume that fertility would be an issue. But throughout my 20s, I was on a contraceptive pill. I tried not to get pregnant. I wasn't with the right people. I never met somebody who I considered to be a long-term partner. So I didn't want to have a child with them. So I took that conscious decision to not get pregnant. So circumstances meant that many of my years, my fertile years, I was not with somebody to be long-term partner with, to be the father of my children. So I've now come to the conclusion that I am childless by circumstance and by fertility or infertility. And I think that's a case for a lot of us, that there's not just one reason, there's multiple. And again, it doesn't matter. It's just a part of who we are. But clarifying that in my head, sort of, I could do a tick box, dealt with it now, don't need to deal with it anymore. It's history, I've dealt with it. So as I say, that was a part of my story that I hadn't discovered and I hadn't investigated, but now I have. So that's why I say our stories are constantly building. There's different doors that we have to open sometimes to ask the questions. And sometimes there's no answers behind those doors, but it doesn't matter. It's just accepting that some of those doors are going to shut in our face. We'll never know an answer, but it really doesn't make up who we are now and who we are today. So you'll believe this, I actually had a script to talk from, and I've completely ignored it and just gone free. So now I'm looking down at my notes to see where I am at, and I've gone through everything. But yeah, so that's the really thing I wanted to say, is that we don't need to hold on to finding answers to everything, because we can't, you know. But yeah, it's just a really interesting factor that we're not just one thing. We are childish due to multiple reasons. Sometimes it's tough choices. Part of my 20s was a relationship with a guy who was abusive. I knew there was no way I wanted to bring a child into the world, into that relationship. So I made the choice not to get pregnant. But had he been a nice guy, the circumstances were different. Maybe I would have tried to conceive at that time. But it doesn't matter. It's all about forgiving our past, which is part of this World Childless Week. We have to forgive, we have to accept, and we have to move forwards. You know, but I think that had I not found a support group all those years ago and started to talk about my past, I'd still feel like I was sitting in the shadows, ashamed of who I was, ashamed of my childlessness. But all of those strangers became friends, many who I still class as very close friends today. And they allowed me to sort of release my negative thoughts, you know, and explode out through comments and posts all the negative energy and anxious emotions held within inside of me. And it was good because through that, I felt like I was being heard. I felt like I was being validated. And I gained gratitude for those people. Those people made a major difference to my healing, to my grieving, and to my moving forwards. So because of them, I didn't feel alone. And I don't feel alone now. You know, each time I wrote down those words, every time I thumped into the keyboard, I released a little bit of that pain, and within that pain going out, a little bit of happiness came in, a little bit of the real me came back to being me again. You know, so I'm not the person I was 10 years ago, but that's okay. I'm okay with being who I am today. And that's really important, because that's where hopefully we'll all get to one day, accepting that what we are in the here and now is who we are, and that is okay. You know, like I say, again, I didn't talk outwards 10 years ago, but now I do. I never thought that I'd been doing this 10 years ago. But I'm not ashamed. I'm not embarrassed or anything. Childless is a word. Childless is part of me, but it's not all of me. I'm not afraid to say I'm childless. But childless is the back of a long list, and that is really important. It's not to let the word childless envelop you. It doesn't entrap me anymore. So all of these things, looking at our story, looking at our past, speaking to people, writing down your emotions, it's why I believe in World Childless Week so much, and sharing our stories, sharing the parts of us that hurt, the parts of us where we find the joy, and everything in the middle. Expressing ourselves can be so cathartic, so healing. So yeah, I can't say enough. It doesn't matter if you don't share for World Childless Week. Share it in your own jot pad, share it on your own keypad. Write, scribble, delete, write, scribble, delete. Keep doing it time and time again until somewhere along the line the pain doesn't engulf you as much as it once did. So, you know, our words, they're not always pretty, but they're the truth. And that is important, to get the truth of our words, our emotions out of our body, so that we can release them and let them go. You know, our words can chain us so that we can't speak, or our words can be released. And with that release, we can find a little bit of hope, a little bit of acceptance. So I want to start off a little bit and talk about World Childless Week, about how it's actually building its own story, similar to me, similar to you. 4 years ago, it didn't exist. It was a blank page. But then, from the beginning, there was an idea. Then, it transpired over time, for 12 months, and the idea from the beginning became its past. But then, 12 months on, or very nearly, it became a present to the new World Childless Week 2019. So just like World Childless Week has grown and developed, but the Forget-Me-Not is still there to represent us. I want to just briefly explain a little about why I chose the Forget-Me-Not, because some people, particularly gardeners, try to remove it from the gardens. They see it as a weed, but it's resilient and it fights back to be noticed each and every year, just like we are doing through World Childless Week. At first glance, it appears to be a few flowers on a few stems, but on closer inspection, each plant is made of small inch-cut flowers. Each branch has a multitude of flowers all together. Each single flower is beautiful in its own right, and it feels to me like each individual flower represents each one of us. But that individual flower is encased and surrounded by multiple other flowers, just like we're surrounded and supported by our community. Then we have the name, the Forget-Me-Not. It has two meanings to me. We will not forget the children we dreamt of, and we will not let society forget us. The new forget-me-not is based also now on the idea of the eternal not. It has perfect symmetry that shows how we are all equal. No one is above or below another. We all interlock. We are united and we are stronger together. So now, as we look forward to the future, we don't know what we will face, but we can be sure of one thing. We have a community to support us. We are not alone. Again, the same can be said for World Childless Week. The future is unknown, but I hope you support us again this year. Before I mention our stories, I want to continue with a little more of World Childless Week's story and talk about the 16th September. When I was researching for an appropriate date, I found out that the 16th of September is the most common birthday. So logically, the day most pregnant women circle on their calendar as the day they will give birth. The majority of childless women never get the opportunity to circle a date. And for those that do, the 16th of September can be remembered as a birthday that never happened. The 16th of September then becomes a date to mourn, a date of remembrance, a date that isn't celebrated. So whilst we could focus on it as a negative, I want it to be remembered as a date of significance that collects us together, a date that we can focus on for making changes, a date that will help us note the passing of time and the lessening of our grief, a date for future hopes and new dreams. So for Monday the 16th, many of us assume that our stories have no meaning or relevance, but we couldn't be more wrong. When we share our stories, it's beneficial to ourselves. We may feel we know our story inside and out. When we put pen to paper or start thumping away at a keyboard, it can release thoughts we haven't physically expressed before and feelings we previously buried. The same process can happen when we read other people's stories and relate to their situations or experiences. No matter if you're childless because of fertility issues, circumstances, tough decisions, or a combination of them all, your story is important and worthwhile of being shared. On Monday the 16th at 8 p.m, there will be a webinar hosted by More to Life. Heather will be talking to two authors, Lorna Gibb of Childless Voices and Kate Kaufman of Do You Have Kids? Life When the Answer Is No. The webinar is aptly called The Importance of Sharing Our Stories. The common concept of grief is that there are 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Anyone who's felt grief knows that it's not as simple as a 5-step process. Each step holds another bundle of thoughts and feelings. It is also not a case of ticking off stage 1 and moving happily towards stage 2, because life is complicated and so are emotions. In reality, this is how this healing process goes. And I think we've all seen this circulating across social media. Our emotions go up, go down, left, right, forwards, backwards, and inside out. What we have to remember is if we want to get to that final stage, we need to look at forgiveness. And not just forgiving others, but looking inwards and forgiving ourselves. So this year's letters from our hearts are addressed to ourselves about forgiveness. It can be so easy to place blame and anger and leave it there without addressing the issue. I left it too late. I should have tried one more time. I should have gone for it on my own. I could have tried a different health gimmick. I should have borrowed the money, lost the weight, stayed in the relationship, etc., etc. So many reasons. We need to accept the past and forgive ourselves for any decisions or actions we may or may not have made. Because if we don't, it can stop us from moving forwards and finding acceptance. On Tuesday at 6 p.m, Jodie Day of Gateway Women will be presenting a webinar called The Self-Compassionate Heart and discussing how working with self-compassion and forgiveness can help us with the heartbreak of childlessness. The written word can be strong, but sometimes a single image can express 1,000 emotions. And for childlessness in the arts, we explore all forms of art. If you're a photographer, a poet, painter, sculptor, actor, dancer, musician, or creative in any way, this day is for you. It's a day to share how you express yourself and how you allow your creativity to release emotions and help calm you. What I really want to stress is that you don't need to be a professional to participate. You may have picked up a biro and jotted a jotter pad and for 5 minutes scribbled, doodled something there that releases your anger. Or you might have taken months to paint something in oil on a canvas about your acceptance. They're totally different forms of art, and both of them are equally important. On Wednesday at 5 p.m, there will be a webinar by Helen Segal. She will explore the freedom of drawing and how it can help calm and release our daily emotions. Men do not talk so openly or share their emotions so readily about being childless. They are often the unseen and unheard halves of our story. In order to try and help represent them last year, I carried out a survey and over 100 men contributed their thoughts. At first, I did not understand most of my wife's emotional pain of not having children. I did not understand why she felt ostracised by family and friends until it happened to me. You can see the full results of the website, but I want to share a few statistics with you now. In response to have you hidden your emotions because you felt that was what men had to do, of 139 men, 70.5% said yes. I also asked, have you hidden your emotions in order to stay strong for your wife or partner? And of 137 men, this percentage increased to 82.48%. In response to, have you been at the end of insensitive comments, of 137 men, just over 70% said yes. And finally, in response to, do you feel others do not understand your pain and grief, of 133 men, 86.6% said yes. These statistics emphasise the importance of getting the male voice stronger in our childless community. I feel like an outcast in my own family because all of my siblings have kids and now their children are starting to have kids. It's very uncomfortable being around them. It's like the big elephant in the room that no one ever wants to talk about. On Thursday, the 9th of September, we need to ensure that men are given the recognition they deserve. Their words, their perspectives, and their emotions are equally important to ours. To ensure this day is fully flexible, there is no set topic, because I want men to have the freedom to talk about what matters to them. Today, the comment that we'll be discussing is, as a parent, I have empathy. This comment seems to have risen in popularity, and I've seen it in politics, heard it in charity adverts, and read it across social media. Instantly, it feels like I'm excluded, and I can feel my hackles rise. The question is, what exactly is empathy, and do I have a right to be annoyed? Have I ever felt empathy for someone because of the situation, or empathy because of a shared emotion? Have I shared someone's joy when they announced their engagement? Yes. Have I shared someone's sadness when their relative has died? Yes. Have I shared someone's confusion over their hatred of their religion? Yes. Have I shared someone's conflict over the death penalty? Yes. I can relate to the first two because I have been engaged and I have mourned a family member. But I can also relate to the second two, despite not having any direct personal experience of those situations. So yes, as a childless woman, I have the ability to understand and share the emotions of another. On this day, I wanted to share our feelings about why the comment, as a parent, I have empathy, is hurtful, and why we believe it's a false statement. I want people to know that as a human, I have empathy. On Friday at 7 p.m, there will be a webinar with Jackie Shannon Hollis and her husband Bill called Transforming Comments That Hurt. They'll be talking about how we can find the strength to deal with different comments in different situations. Self-doubt is a hard thing to shake, and we can all be our own worst critics. Life can be full of many reasons to doubt our worth, but childlessness does not make us unworthy. Here are two women, one you may recognise and one you may not. The first is Dolly Parton, who is known primarily as a country and western singer. But that is not all she is known for, as she is a songwriter, a multi-instrumentalist, record producer, actress, author and businesswoman. Dolly also supports numerous charitable efforts, including a literacy programme called Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. The Imagination Library is a book gifting programme that mails free books to children once a month from birth until they begin school, no matter their family's income. It encompasses the US, Canada, UK, Ireland and Australia. The second picture is of Salamarada Fimaka, also known as Alada Marada Fimaka. This lady received no formal education and worked as a casual labourer in a quarry. In her younger years, she decided to start planting banyan trees along a 4-kilometre distance. She and her husband would carry pails of water to the saplings each and every day. They also protected the saplings from grazing cattle by fencing them in with thorny shrubs. For 66 years of her life, she continued to plant trees. It is estimated she has planted over 8,000. Now, at the age of 107, she has received numerous awards and listed by the BBC as one of the most influential and aspiring women of the world, and yet she still lives in poverty. Neither of these women had children in their lives, and their lives could not be more different or apart from each other. But there is one aspect they share. They both, with and without intention, started something that benefits others and makes a difference. Worth is not about how much money we gain or if we give birth. Worth is about how we live our life and how we treat others. We don't need to make big gestures or change the world. Sometimes all we need to do is give someone the space to talk or open our arms and offer hugs. Little things make big changes. So if you have found your worth or see in someone else who's childless not by choice, get in touch and share your stories with me. On Saturday, we have several events happening for World Childless Week. These events recognise our grief, share our journey and celebrate our worth. In Pasadena, in the US, at 10 a.m, there is the opportunity to attend a non-denominational service. And Gateway Women are organising meetups around the world. So far they've been organised in the UK, US, Ireland and Australia. At 7 p.m. in the UK, Chiara Berardelli will be live streaming her songs from the album Sea Monster. In time, our grief will lessen and we will find new dreams and acceptance. It doesn't mean that we will have forgot our desire to be a parent, but it does mean our life can have new perspectives. We can reflect on how we have moved forward since last year's World Childless Week, what changes we've made in our life, and hear from those who have found acceptance and embraced their plan B. Last year, for finding acceptance and moving forwards, Muriel Well, who is a World Childless Week champion and runs Muriel Well Counselling, wrote, "One woman's journey through childlessness." It picked up on a lot of the emotions I've felt and the stages that we've been through or still going through. Grief-stricken and hopeless, scared and confused, ashamed and inadequate, guilty and lost, angry and jealous, comforted and heard, excited and optimistic, accepted and happy. Healing. Under healing, Muriel wrote, I've learned that I need to grieve in order to heal. I've told my story and I begin to forgive others and myself for things that happened in my past. I found people who understand and learned that I'm good enough exactly as I am, despite everything that's happened. I've learned to celebrate every step I make towards my future. I've learned to speak to myself as a loving mother would and change my inner voice to one that encourages rather than blames and supports rather than criticises. I've listened to my friends with children and acknowledged their experiences. I feel the joy of reconnection as they listen to and acknowledge mine. Our lives are neither better nor worse than each other, just different. We are equally worthy. I know I have as many possibilities for happiness, for fulfillment, and for living a life of meaning as a mother or father has. I feel happy and content with my life as it is, encouraged and supported, hopeful and positive. I move forwards with acceptance, with joy, with relief, with forgiveness, with understanding, with compassion and love. So that is all we have planned for World Childless Week 2019, but it is just a plan. I need you because without you, there are no stories, there are no thoughts, there are just blank pages. So please think through what I've shared with you today and consider putting pen to paper. It's never too late to contact me and never too late to share your words. Each part of our journey has a place during the week in a similar vein as you have a place in our community. We need to get the word out that World Childless Week is happening in September. So if you are happy to share information through your own social media accounts, please do. You can follow and share items from the World Childless Week Facebook page, Twitter account, Instagram account, or the website. We also have posters available to download and print off. So if you have the confidence to pin one at your works, the doctors or local library, or anywhere else, please do. If you'd like to share but feel uncomfortable to be public, you could possibly print a few out and then mail them with an anonymous note explaining why World Childless Week is important to you. If you are confident enough, try connecting your local newspaper or radio station and asking if they'd like to run a story. Local stations like to hear about local people. Or if you hear of a journalist request that you feel is relevant but don't want to speak up about, get in touch with me or one of the champions. Let us be your voice. And last but by no means least, interact with a poster in World Childless Week. Let the people who have shared their stories know they're being heard. Let them know you see them. Let them know you hear them. Let them know you understand them. The more noise we make, the more likely the media will pay attention and start to show an interest in our words. We've already made a difference, but we know there are more people sitting in the dark, alone, unaware that there is a community waiting to support them. We need to help them find us. I promise you now that I am coming to an end, but before I want to go, I want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone who's already participated in any way, shape or form, be that publicly sharing a story or silently reading someone else's words. My final images are not about me and not my words. These following images are from World Childless Week 2018 and represent who we are and who we can be, because we are so much more than being childless. I am a survivor. I am strong. I am complete. I am brave. I am fierce. I am unique. I am thoughtful. I am enough. I rock. I am a creator. I am whole. I am valued. I am loved. I am healing. I am complex. I am free. My very last photo is of someone you will recognise. Heather wrote our I am me words after hearing my webinar last year. I hope that something from what I've said and shared today will make you feel empowered, inspired and worthy.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for that.
I want to have a drink now because I've been coughing all the way through that. Excuse me.
You go ahead. You've earned that. Thank you for showing that. And that was just after, I did write that just after actually doing your webinar, listening to your webinar last year.
Yeah.
It really, really did inspire me and empower me at the time. And tonight has as well. I have to say, it's been an absolute joy to listen to you. And it was an absolute joy. I mean, you started off by saying about forgiving our past and forgiving ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the major obstacles that anybody who is childless goes through is those what ifs. What if I had done something different?
Exactly.
And we tend to blame ourselves, which just manifests in shame, etc.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you started off with that, which I think was just so poignant for many people. Thank you very much. Now, as you know, because you've been working with me quite a lot, I'm quite a practical person.
Okay.
I like to know the hows.
Right.
How to do things.
Of course.
So, if we want to come along, now, in fact, the More to Life webinar that kicks the week off on the Monday, I just say people register for that on our website in the usual way.
Yeah.
Okay? But the one on the Tuesday about the self-compassionate heart, letters from our heart, how do they register for that?
It's through the Gateway Women's website, but I have the link on the World Childless Week events page as well, and I'll do the same for yours so that all of the events will be on the events page, but they will link back to the individuals if they've got their own setup to do their webinar. So go to the events page under the community section of World Childless Week and it will all be on there. And I'll let you know that some of the webinars I've explained and shared tonight, they're not live yet. I've kept them for tonight to be revealed to everybody who turns up, and they will be added to the website over the next couple of days. And that's not all that we have as well. There are more events still to be announced. So please keep watching. Tune into the newsletter. Tune into the website. It'll all be on there given time.
So keep checking it out as we get closer and closer to the date. The other thing I want to ask you, because again, I'm somebody that's obsessed with time because my job is very much about deadlines all the time. So what's the deadline to submit pieces of artwork, writing, etc.?
The so-called official deadline is the end of the month. But I know from the past 2 years that it takes a lot of courage to actually put pen to paper. And I know I get a lot of submissions in the 2 weeks before World Childless Week. It's the nature, and I won't turn anybody away because it's not for me to do that. It's if it comes in early, it's great. It gives me a head start loading up the website. But if it comes in late, if I've got a space, I'll add you, because I just think that everybody should have the opportunity to, use their voice. And the big thing is to say, obviously, everybody can be completely anonymous. They come through to me, so it's all confident between them and me, and they can be completely anonymous. They don't need to use their name or anything else.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. So we look forward to finding out more information. So we must keep visiting the website. That's key, really, because it's all on there, isn't it? And that's www.worldchildlessweek.net, isn't it?
You put a net at the beginning there. You got a bit.
Sorry, www.
Yes.
worldchildlessweek.net.
That's the one.
That's it. Sorry about that, folks.
Don't worry.
Right, we've got a couple of questions, so I'm going to go in and have a look. Okay, now this is a brilliant question.
Oh, yeah.
Writing seems to have been very important to your healing. Initially, did you write to share, or was it just for yourself, or was it both?
I think my initial writing was through support groups. So I think quite often when you join a support group, you sit there in the sidelines, in the background, because you don't want to actually come out and face people. But then somebody will post something, you think, I agree with that, or oh my God, that's emotional. And it gets you pulled in to write things. So you write for yourself, but you're also writing for the other people as well, because you start having a conversation. So when you write, yes, you're releasing your emotions, but you're writing with other people who understand. And I think that's what gives you the strength to then make your own post. And then over time, if you choose to, like me, you start going on your own timeline and saying, I'm not going to sit in the support groups and keep quiet anymore. I'm going to make my own post. So it is for yourself, but it also does, in turn, in a support group, help others as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I think the timing of it as well can be key, because sometimes when you write something down, you don't feel the benefit of what you've done right away.
Yeah.
I think sometimes the brain needs time to process it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes later on you might discover that because you've written it down, it doesn't seem as painful anymore.
I think there's also the point that you repeat yourself through posts. You repeat and repeat and repeat what you're saying. But each time you repeat it, you don't realise you're releasing a little bit of that anger and that anxiety. And even if you type it and then delete it without sending, it still helps.
Yeah. Because
you've released it through the keyboard.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a repetitive thing, but the repetition releases things over time. That's personal, and I think a lot of people have expressed the same.
Which is why so many people find keeping a childless journal really, really useful, because they might be feeling the same thing again and again. They might write it again and again. And as you say, each time they write it, they're releasing a little bit of that hurt that's in there.
And it's like people often say, when will I feel better? When will I heal? When will I find acceptance? You can't put a date on it. You can't put a date on it. And I always say to people, the way you start to realise you're finding acceptance is when you're in a situation and suddenly realise it didn't hurt you. And this time last year, you'd have run out of the room, or you'd have made your excuses, or you'd have, shed a tear. But when something doesn't hurt and it's reflecting back on time, makes you realise you've gone forwards.
Like you were saying earlier about when you were first trying to make meaning of it all, it was really important to you that you had some sort of medical answer for why things didn't happen.
Yeah.
But now you've moved beyond that, and actually it's not that important to you anymore to know the reason why, because you've accepted the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
And therefore the thoughts and feelings that you used to have that would drive you crazy, thinking, I need to know why this didn't happen to me. Why was it me? And, why was I unlucky enough to go through this? And all of that, you don't need that anymore. What you're saying now is, I want to find ways now. I've moved on from it. I accept it. And now I want to find ways to have different experiences.
Yeah. Again, it's all about forgiving the past, forgiving you'll never know the answers.
Yeah.
Forgiving that it's not necessarily the doctors who didn't have the answers. It might be your body didn't provide the answers. No matter what it is, you aren't going to get them. So just forgive your past, whatever it is. Forgive it so you can help yourself move forwards, definitely. Yeah.
That's so important, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Thank you. Got another question. Oh, this is really good. Right, it's not actually a question, it's a comment, but it's a really, really, I couldn't agree with it more. It says, the topics for World Childless Week sound great, particularly the one for men and how to deal with insensitive comments. Thank you. Now, the reason I think that's so brilliant is because sometimes we think that men don't take things to heart as much as women do.
Yeah. Like I said, the percentages that came back just showed it is just as important to them and just as hard on them as it is to us. And I think that's what we really need to get out there. And the fact I had around 130, 140 people answering each of the questions, or gentlemen answer the questions, that's not a small number. That's a lot more than I expected to come forward and speak as well. And it was, you know, the quotes that the people shared and the statistics, you know, they're saddening, because it just reinforces that they feel as much as we do. And that's why we need to get their voice out there. They're so important.
Do you think that's changing then, Stephanie? Do you think that more and more men are feeling more comfortable about coming forward? It's almost as if society's allowing them to do that a bit more.
I think there are changes. I agree that there are changes. I think that because the conversation generally about mental health has made a lot of changes, but there still is a stigma, I think, of being childless. It's still another step away. Yeah. I think there's still a lot more work to be done on it, because there are a few more gentlemen speaking out, but still the percentage of men to females who speak out is so low. You know, and I think it takes quite often, and I've heard a few people sort of say, the woman finds acceptance through, or, you know, confidence first through a support group, but then her confidence starts to wear off on the gentleman and the partners.
Yeah,
and that's when they suddenly, but they're a few years behind us quite often, because they use our sort of confidence to sort of start talking out for the first time themselves. So it's like a delayed process, but yeah, hopefully they will start speaking out a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, you know, you've got your Men Matter 2 day on the Thursday, so that's working to encourage that very much, and to give them that recognition and a forum to do that, so about what matters to them, etc. So that's great. I don't think we've got any more questions.